Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Savannah Kelly. A tragic time for one Manitoba family. 3 children, a teenager, and 1 woman were found dead in 3 different locations in southern Manitoba Sunday morning. The children's father and common-law partner to the woman has been charged. Tamara Pimentel has more.
Debris from a car fire on this Manitoba highway is what's left at one of the scenes where 5 family members were found dead Sunday morning. 29-year-old Ryan Manakisik has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, following the deaths of his 30-year-old common-law partner, her niece, and their 3 children, aged 6, 4, and 2.5 months old. A GoFundMe page has been created to raise money for a funeral. In it, a family friend identifies the victims as Amanda, Javen, Bethany, and Isabella Clearwater, and Maya Grattan.
And I'm very heartbroken with the loss of our women and the loss of young ones that we have lost over the weekend.
Grand Chief Kathy Merrick and Premier Wab Kinew spoke at an RCMP press conference on Monday.
This is pure darkness. When you think about a 2.5-month-old, it is impossible to imagine that there's anything that could justify what took place.
The deaths happened in 3 places. Around 7:30 Sunday morning, RCMP officers responded to a report of a hit and run on Highway 3 near Carmen. They found the body of Manakisik's partner. Hours later, RCMP received a call about a car on fire 45 minutes north on Highway 248 near Saint Eustache. RCMP say the accused pulled his 3 children out of the car before officers arrived. All 3 were declared dead at the scene. The investigation continued and led police to a residence in Carmen where the body of the 17-year-old niece was located. Manakisik and all 5 victims lived in the home together.
It's sad that people are struggling and that we need to ensure that they have access to culturally appropriate services. A lot of our people get caught in between and they struggle, and these things happen. I'm sure the man loved his children. I'm sure that he's sorry that he had to pull them out of the vehicle, but he did something wrong.
RCMP Major Crimes Services continue to investigate. The surviving family has asked for privacy, and autopsies are scheduled for today and tomorrow. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Comments about arson destroying water treatment plants on 2 First Nations in Saskatchewan are being challenged. Conservative MP Kevin Waugh from Saskatoon made the comments in a House of Commons debate last week. As our video journalist Rachel May reports, one of the First Nations Waugh was referencing has a few words for him.
In my province of Saskatchewan, I've seen reserves burn down water treatment plants because this government has done little or nothing.
That's Kevin Waugh during a debate over Bill C-61, the First Nations Water Act, last week in Ottawa. Waugh is a Conservative MP from Saskatoon.
These water treatment plants need education, and they need people on reserve to operate the water treatment plants.
The comments did not sit well with Kimball Ironstar, water plant manager for Carry the Kettle Nakota Nation, one of the reserves Waugh was referring to.
To have somebody come and see that behind their backs without even coming out to Carry the Kettle to see our facilities and to meet our water operators and understand the environment they work in and what they do was a slap in the face to them, and they didn't feel so good about it.
When it comes to an apology, Ironstar says he hopes that Waugh takes the time to visit the reserves he spoke about and understand how they operate.
Until he comes out to meet our guys and sees the stuff, and maybe then he'll apologize. It's going to be a heartfelt apology.
When it comes to moving on from the comments, Ironstar says Carry the Kettle is a resilient community.
Talk like this is going to affect us for maybe the day or two, but you know what? We're going to get up the next day and we're going to go back to work, and we're going to do the things we need to do to keep our communities safe.
Carry the Kettle is not on the federal boil water advisory list. Wah's office has since walked back his comments, stating he wasn't familiar with the specific circumstances surrounding the fires. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Algonquin First Nations from Quebec were in Ottawa to voice opposition to a plan to build a radioactive dump on their territory. Last week, the Quebec First Nation filed a federal court application for a judicial review of the approval. In a show of support, they were joined on Wednesday by members of the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
Chiefs, community members and allies of the Algonquin nations in Quebec gathered with signs and drums for a small rally on Parliament. They united in opposition of a radioactive disposal facility at Chalk River. Sasha Hybricks came to show her support. She works with the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. She said it's important to put a halt on the project to find a safer solution.
I think the best option would be the deep geological reservoir that they've done in other countries, such as like Finland and Sweden, where you really you bury the waste deep underground, far away from water sources that are important for the Indigenous communities and all of the local communities.
The Vice Chief of Temiskaming First Nation is pleased with the support, but says more people should be concerned about the issue.
This water is going to affect everybody, not just us, but everybody in the 7 generations down the line. So we would really like to have maybe a little more support coming from our neighboring non-Indigenous communities.
Last month, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, or CNSC, gave the green light for the Chalk River nuclear facility to build a place to dispose of 1 million cubic meters of low-level radioactive waste, such as contaminated clothing and building materials. However, it is located 1 kilometer from the Ottawa River. Before the rally, chiefs and politicians held a press conference in Parliament. Chief Lance Haymond of the Québécois First Nations said the Ottawa River holds immense cultural, spiritual, and historical importance to the Anishinaabe people. It runs through unceded ancestral lands on which their nations hold title and rights.
Last week's decision by the Supreme Court in C-92 reminded everyone that First Nations have ancestral rights protected by the Constitution, including the inherent right to self-government. So it's as a chief of a government that I present myself here to ask the current federal government, nation to nation, to step in and stop the nonsense decision made by the CNSC.
Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May stood in support of the chief's calls for a halt. She said the CNSC is once again rubber stamping a project.
So we have a situation again where the words are really clear. Say them again: free, prior, and informed consent. The word prior is very important here because, as you've heard, the Indigenous peoples of the area were not consulted about the location of the site.
The Chalk River facility is expected to last 550 years, but the chiefs say they'll continue to fight to stop the development until they've been consulted and a better plan for storage is in place. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A Migma commercial fisher is following all DFO regulations, but it hasn't stopped his traps from going missing or his boat from being damaged. We'll bring you that story after the break. Welcome back to APTN National News. A Migma fisher who has fought for fishing rights for over 20 years decided to become a commercial fisher and follow the rules. But that didn't prevent his lobster traps from disappearing and his boat from being damaged. Angel Moore reports.
That's Alexander McDonald in the year 2000, swinging a bat at a fisheries officer trying to board his boat. It was after the Marshall decision. The Supreme Court of Canada upheld Mi'kmaq treaty rights to fish. Migma fishers took to the waters in southwestern Nova Scotia, but according to DFO, they were fishing out of season and without a license. Today, McDonald fishes with a commercial license and follows the Department of Fisheries and Oceans regulations. However, he says he still faces backlash from non-Indigenous fishers.
It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse since, it's gotten worse. You know, Marshall didn't do us any favor. It's gotten worse. These people, the non-natives, they don't want us in the water, period.
McDonald and his crew would normally be fishing. Instead, he's making a complaint to RCMP. His lobster traps are on the wharf at the Shelburne Marine Terminal, and fisheries officers are inspecting what is left of McDonald's missing traps. McDonald says fishing during the commercial season is not safe.
We need our own season, and this is the reason. This is the reason. You know, I'm 62 years old, and I've been at this a long time fishing, and it's never stopped.
Crew member Joseph Brooks says,
here we are doing the commercial season and we're still not being allowed or disregarded, you know, and being considered outsiders when we're Indigenous people to our own country, which is like the worst feeling, I guess you could say. That
McDonald is a commercial fisherman and a captain since 1997. He leased a commercial license from his band for $60,000 and dropped his traps last November at the start of the season. McDonald says the first week his traps started to go missing, and last December his boat was set adrift and washed ashore, causing over $60,000 in damages.
Season for a reason is bullshit. You know, it's wrong. It's for them to say that and then to complain, you know, we're not fishing their season, but when we try to fish their season, then they take our gear.
After losing about $200,000 in lost catch and about 500 traps, McDonald and his crew pulled his traps off the coast of Shelburne, about 200 kilometers southwest of Halifax.
I've been debating this with myself for weeks. You know, should I keep going? Should I quit? And then when we lost 12 more traps, I was like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out. You know, I can't lose any more. It's just too costly. And you know, I use my day school money that I got from day school and being abused, and now I feel like I'm being abused here.
Nova Scotia RCMP say an investigation into McDonald's allegations is ongoing. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans did not respond to an interview request by Airtime. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax.
We need to take one more quick break. Still to come, we'll tell you about a program geared for Indigenous people that's teaching folks how to make their homes more energy efficient. Welcome back. Western Arctic communities, including Nunavut, don't have many accessible dine-in restaurants. But one restaurant that recently reopened after closing last spring is now Inuvialuit owned and is getting a lot of buzz as it is one of the few restaurants that is now able to serve and sell some country food, part of a national and international Indigenous effort in taking leadership in solving food insecurity, economy, and healing. Carly Schogner has this story.
Muskox is super healthy, packed with vitamins and proteins and all sorts of nutrients.
That's Inuvialuit cook Joel Amos, for the first time being able to cook and sell muskox, wild game from the Arctic Beaufort Sea region.
I grew up in Sax Harbor for the first 10 years of my life, so I'm very accustomed to eating muskox. It's sort of like beef in the fact that it has marbling. I'm glad they have it a part of the menu. It's very interesting because it's the only place that actually has muskox on the menu.
He's the new kitchen manager at the Inuvialuit owned restaurant Mamaktuk, or which means delicious, in Inuktitut and Inuvialuktun.
Like when you look at the menu, what does it mean to have
traditional food on our menu? It's kind of like revolutionary.
17-year-old waitress Brooklyn Bodnar says she's found unexpected purpose in the new opportunity to serve country food.
We have people come in like every day, new faces. They're asking questions about our culture. They're asking how it's hunted, where it's hunted. They're finding out new information, which is lovely. And honestly, people just like really like our food. Like, they're interested in learning about our culture, and it's really nice.
This has been made possible from years of negotiations with the federal and territorial government and the Nunavut-run country food processing plant down the road. Director Brian Wade says while up until now they could only trade and sell to fellow Inuvialuit, they now have the ability to sell some country food to everyone.
In the IFA, we're able to barter or trade with each other. Now, reading the regulations and working with the GNWT, we're able to create a retail component to this.
The second modern comprehensive land claim, the Inuvialuit Final Agreement, signed in 1984, gives the Inuvialuit the lead in land and wildlife management, including tracking wildlife populations.
This plant was designed partially to kind of alleviate that need to rely on southern markets and southern stores to feed ourselves. In addition, it also provides kind of a traditional economy for people who have mastered the skills throughout their life to be able to harvest, to be able to fish, process wild game.
And this was an idea before it came to production. We sat down with all of the community corporations and the hunters and trappers that represent the 6 communities in the ISR, and we came up with a harvest calendar, figured out a fair compensation for each animal that they are harvesting, and that's how it is. So every month we do our local call-outs to the 6 ISR communities. The harvesters go out and get it, and then we logistically get it back here into the freezer, and this is where it waits to get processed.
That's a dehydrator. Here's the smoker, big smoker. We got industrialized grinder, we got smokers, patty makers, cryovac machines. And then it makes its way through. It's professionally packaged, labeled, and then put into the finished freezer. Muck duck is beluga whale. So every 6 months, we distribute these boxes out to all 6 communities and all the households. But it's also our stock that we can provide to the restaurant at any given time, or any other programming that requires country food.
In addition to muskox, they are helping the restaurant introduce reindeer, which the Inuvialuit took ownership of the herd in 2021.
And we're just trying to introduce the fish into the restaurant. The char right now is locally sourced, but it's not from our region. We get it out of Cambridge Bay. The reason for that is that the Arctic char in our region, their numbers are not strong. So we don't want to put any pressure on the communities to kind of export their resources when they don't have enough to fulfill their own quotas within their community.
At Mamuktuk on ori opening night, Farah Abdul says she believes it's what the community needs.
I think the variety is great. I think it includes very inclusive. It includes everyone, gluten-free, the vegetarian and vegan options, the local, food I think is amazing, so that it's Inuvialuit owned.
She says that supporting is not just about buying, but seeking employment there.
Being short-staffed is something that I think we all know that we struggle with in the north. So I just think we all have to kind of support one another and support this restaurant.
I'm so glad people are able to teach me what I need to know for this job, and talking to me about actually becoming a bartender or someone in the kitchen, which is really cool, which I didn't even know I was interested in until I started working here.
Amos says access to locally harvested food helps to cut costs in Indigenous homes.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have country food in my freezer, so I don't have to go to the grocery store for protein. But it is very expensive for fruit, vegetables, milk, everything across the board is so expensive right now. It's pretty hard for some people right now, and I can feel it. Like, there are people out there that are suffering.
To see country food now accessible for everyone, he says he's excited to see greater Indigenous economy.
Hunting for Inuit is almost like religion. You practice it generation after generation after generation. It's something that's passed on. So it's from harvest to table. And I'm glad and I'm proud to be a part of this, because that's what the Inuvialuit are providing for our people. A lot of people drive up here in the summer. Tourists are everywhere, and I'm excited for them to try muskox. I want every one of them to stop into Mamuktuk to try our muskox bolognese and our muskox empanada, and the reindeer tail.
In the meantime, the Inuvialuit are continuing to negotiate with governments to get more local options on the menu and in other places. Carly Shogner, APTN National News, Nunavut.
Thank you. A housing program geared to Indigenous communities has wrapped up its 2-week hands-on session. Making older homes energy efficient can be a challenge, but the 16 participants of the program are preparing to make a difference. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
You should get good at being able to do both. There's that beautiful little bubble. You are much better coming this direction. See that job? Look at that.
These hands-on experiences in retrofitting old homes will come in handy for Mercedes Sandy. She's the housing assistant in her community of Beausoleil First Nation in Ontario. She has a passion for safe, affordable housing. So when she heard about the Project Accelerator program, she jumped on board.
Hopefully I want to do like a net zero apartment building to help address some of our housing crisis in my nation, but also kind of trying something new and kind of changing how we build our houses so that they're more efficient, so that they last longer.
Indigenous Clean Energy is the organization behind the 18-month program. Its goal is to help participants create an energy-efficient work plan for their communities. At the end of it all, there's $125,000 available in project grants to assist each participant. And according to the project manager, Cody Cote, there will be ongoing supports available during the project stage.
Majority of the projects are retrofits. They want to address the current housing stock first. Because, I mean, the current housing stock, that's where we're seeing a lot of the challenges. But the good thing is that knowledge is transferable, so all of the building science stays the same. You can kind of take that and apply it to new builds.
Corey Kaufelt is the Community Energy Coordinator in Pikwakanagan First Nation in Ontario. He says the skills learned here will help him to engage more with members to help address the issues in his community.
There's lots of health issues because of poor housing. Everyone's paying high utility bills, or higher than they should be because subpar construction. And yeah, my goal is to address all those and to make the standard of living in Pikwakanagan much better.
For Sandy, connecting with other Indigenous participants across the country has been empowering.
We all come from those same situations. We have those same problems in our communities, and we're sharing knowledge of what they're doing in their communities and taking that knowledge, and we can bring it back to our nations and say, hey, this is what so-and-so is doing. We can do that.
Although the 2-week hands-on program is complete, the program isn't. Cote says each participant will have access to a one-on-one mentorship and technical support to achieve their goals. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Wakefield, Quebec.
That's all the time we have here tonight on APTN National News. For news anytime or to catch up on stories you may have missed, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy, Miigwech, thank you for joining us. Have a great night.